day early, but here we are for Cat's Chats, where we talk about whatever you want. I'm Kat Rambo, your medicine woman, and you have chosen your topic, which is red flags. Thanks, Chrissy. So, relationships, communication, and trust are all really important, but first, it's making the decision about who to decide to be around and who to spend our energy with. So, red flags don't just apply to romance and love relationships, they apply to friendships and sometimes even family. So, let's talk about what that even means. What is a red flag? So, this is our early warning signal, right? That's the little flag that pops up and says, maybe that's dangerous, unsafe, unsustainable. Maybe that's not for me. Maybe I don't like that. And it's important to pay attention to these qualities. So, we can often look back and say, there were so many red flags and I just ignored them. Why do we do that? Why is it that we miss the red flags? And how is it that we seem to ignore them when we realize we should pay attention to them and we keep making the same mistakes again and again? So we need them because they protect us, right? They help us avoid loud children. They help us avoid getting into dangerous situations or getting emotionally invested in relationships that are not good for us, toxic, etc. And remember, red flags are personal, right? Just like relationships are. So, what may be a negative attribute for one or a dangerous quality for one may actually be a desired trait for another. So, it's important to decide what exactly for you is a quality that you're not going to tolerate and what's a quality that's fine for you. So, some people are really into serial killers and some people are really not. You know what I mean? It's whatever it is that's for you, it's personal. Remember, red flags really aren't about the other person, they're about you. They're about you looking at someone else and deciding if that's right for you. It can generally be said that there are probably some consistent qualities in relationships that we should probably look out for before endeavoring into those relationships, whether friendships or otherwise. And we can go over a few of those too more towards the end. And I think more importantly is what happens when we feel like our picker's broken. We This seems to be a topic a lot recently. So, what happens when we feel like our picker's broken? What does that mean? Like, I always seem to get in the same crappy relationship. I always seem to miss the red flags. What is that? Is there something wrong with me? I only see them after the fact. It may not be your fault exactly. So, there are several reasons why we skip them, miss them, or ignore them. And hello, Adriana. Hello. Uh, Adriana, how do you say it? So one of the reasons that we will happily miss a red flag is desire. If we really want someone in our life, we really like other qualities about them, we really want a relationship to work out for some reason, hola, then we will choose to pursue the relationship anyway, even if it has qualities, obviously, that we're seeing that are not for us. Another one is hope. We think that... Me saludas. Hello, sí, claro. Another reason is hope. We think, oh, well, things will get better, or if maybe we just improved our communication, or maybe things will change down the line, or maybe this person's saying they're growing and I believe them, right? So hope. Hope is a big, big one, right? Adrián y Adriana. Qué interesante. Another one is illusion, right? We delude ourselves when we say things like, oh, well, they say they'll change, but they're not, but they say they will. Maybe they will this time. So sometimes we believe in fantasies. And this goes along with hope, but sometimes it's a little deeper than that. It's just delusion. But we do it to ourselves all the time. And the reason can be one of two things. One is love. Love, right? So, especially when we start experiencing emotional attachment, we start producing chemical compounds in the body, which are similar also, by the way, to the compounds released by addiction. So or other types of fixes, right? Social media, etc. So we get dumb. We are programmed, hardwired, and so it clouds our judgment, right? And they say that the first 18 months of a relationship is equivalent to other types of intoxication. So you may not be seeing very clearly. You may be clouded by feelings of affection, infatuation, love, even, and be really happy to glaze over all the things that aren't perfect because it's all going to be just fine, right? Because you're in love. And that sounds good, but eventually, that's what's the not sustainable part. Right? So another reason, which is the reason I think really affects most of the people that I work with in my practice, is familiar problems. It's full of familiarity. So if you're raised in an environment that normalizes a certain behavior, for example, excessive criticism, for example, you may be inclined to get with someone who may not criticize excessively at first, but when you start to see that criticism kick up, instead of identifying that as a red flag, it'll feel familiar. And your subconscious mind, the purpose of it is to keep you alive, and it knows that you can survive criticism. It's comfortable and it's familiar. So it will choose it because it feels just like coming home. I feel like I've known him my whole life. Well, you have. You've known criticism your whole life, and so you're going to choose it in your relationships. How do we get over that? That's a little bit more complex process, and that's unique to every situation, of course. But yeah, for familiarity is part of the reason why we happily ignore those red flags. We can often look back and say, "Oh man, I should have noticed the narcissism right from the beginning. Why didn't I see it?" Well, it felt right. It felt passionate. It felt exciting because those parts of you that were already very familiar with those qualities from the narcissistic parent you had growing up, or that whirlwind love that you had that was narcissistic that created this emotional attachment. Um, you get like nice trauma bonding out of it, right? Hello, hello. Joel, nice to see you. So this is one of the reasons that red flags are often missed is because of that familiarity. And I think a lot of us can say that we definitely have had the experience of looking at repetitive relationships in our life. And it's not always just love relationships. Sometimes it's friends. Sometimes it's even bosses. You know, we'll get into a work environment and our favorite coworkers will actually turn out to be people that are toxic for us, but they had the right red flags. So this is why I'm saying red flags are unique, because they're personal, because it's not a red flag if it doesn't pop up and warn you, right? So then it's just familiarity and it's just more of the same. So how do you turn those things into red flags? How do you use what's happening as an early warning signal? If you cannot trust your picker, right? If you cannot trust that intuitive impulse that the red flag is supposed to come from, that intuitive impulse, if you can't trust it because it keeps leading you into relationships that are repetitively not good for you, then use a different system, right? So if that system isn't working for you right now, that doesn't mean give up, right? It means use a different system as your fail safe. I do this with my clients. In fact, very recently did this with a client, and because it works, right? This also really works for people who have issues with social cues. For example, anyone who is neurodivergent in any type of way may have a hard time understanding social cues and may need a little bit deeper scrutiny and not necessarily just rely on this intuitive early warning system. So my favorite way of doing it is, instead of, let's remove this from the emotional system that we're not able to trust right now, and start moving into a different system. So for example, let's use the rational self. And it's not very romantic to look at our relationships rationally, but I think in the modern day we definitely need to, especially since our communication needs have definitely changed, and our communication styles, especially with short form communication like text messages and impersonal communication like email. It's definitely helpful for us to rationalize the way we're communicating, to up level the way we're connecting with others, and to get a lot more intentional a lot faster. So we can really maximize that connection time. We don't have the same, perhaps they're saying, some specialists are saying now, we don't really have the same capacity to connect that we used to. We don't really pick up on body language the way we used to. We don't really connect with vocal cues the way that we used to. So our communication style is definitely changing, and we need to meet the times with more clarity, right? So, of course, the first way to remove this familiarity paradox, right, is to, you like it, but you don't like it, but you really want it, but you really don't, right? Is to heal that, right? So when you get over that comfort level, to make make the familiar unfamiliar, and get over that comfort level and the willingness to accept things that you do not want anymore, then you will no longer be attracted to them, right? This is how you heal yourself from compulsively choosing narcissists, for example, is you deal with whatever it is that's inside you that allows for that behavior in the first place. So usually it doesn't start right away, it creeps in, but you'll see something in the beginning that'll set you off. And usually it's your subconscious mind that'll pick up on subtle cues that the conscious self and the hormonal and emotional self are missing when you're spooning, right? But Even the excitement of a new friend, we can easily glaze over. Or the attachment for another reason. Maybe we really need this other person in our life for some reason, so we're willing to overlook these flaws, right? But maybe that is not the best course of action. So here are some things that could go on your list. So what does this mean to use a different system? So for example, if the emotional compulsion, the emotional intuition isn't working for you, but it's not time to give up, right? So use a different system. So instead, write out a list of things that you love and you want, and a list of things that you will not tolerate. And put little check boxes next to them. Just draw them in right next to those qualities. And when you have a new thing to put on the list, add it to the list. And make a promise to yourself to love and respect and value yourself enough that when those check boxes get filled in at whatever your discretion is, then you will promise yourself to remove yourself from the situation no matter the emotional investment, right? We get stuck in relationships with the sunk cost fallacy, familiar for those in business. I've already invested so much. I can't give up now. Cut your losses, move on, right? And let me tell you, when you learn to give up on what isn't good for you, you will be choosing yourself, which will lead you to better places always. Yes, relationships take work. No, no one is perfect. Yes, you do deserve to be treated well, right? This is why checkboxes, not just one. Someone tells a little white lie every now and then. This happens. Most people do this. Doesn't mean you have to dump your relationship immediately. But if you notice consistent and regular lying, this might be a problem. I would definitely count that as an organic red flag that should probably be good for everyone to consider that a red flag, right? That would also mean saying one thing and doing another thing. Look, we've all done that one time. We've overextended ourselves. We promised we would do something and forgot. I'm not talking about being a tyrant, but when this seems to be happening regularly and consistently, this is an inauthentic, dishonest person. That is definitely something that should be on your checklist, right? Um, Lying consistently, right? Also, dismissing or minimizing your thoughts, opinions, and feelings. This is not a good quality. This is not someone who's genuinely interested in you, right? For who you are. Someone who's generally curious about you and wants to encourage, support, and adore you will want to learn more about your ideas, thoughts, and opinions, will want to honor them. Even if they don't share them, they'll respect them. Someone who is constantly minimizing and blowing off your thoughts and dismissing you, um, that's not a good quality, right? Not a good quality. Um, Criticism we already covered. Incessant criticism is a negative trait, right? For a lot of us, that feels really familiar, right? Especially if we have a parent who's hard on us and we say, oh, but the parent being hard on me, that's how I grew. So partnership should make us grow. We'll find all kinds of reasons to justify it. It's not a good quality, okay? Support and love and encouragement are always going to take us farther than consistent harsh criticism, just cuts us down and makes us small, right? Also, violating of boundaries. So we could do a whole conversation on the difference between boundaries and expectations, et cetera, et cetera. But what that means is if there is a rule that you set for yourself in your life, because boundaries are for you and about you, they're not about others. A boundary is I do not respond to text messages after 10 p.m. That's your boundary. Don't text me after 10 p.m. That's not a boundary. That's a rule, right? So there's different ways to look at these things. But someone who will constantly cross your lines, please don't show up to my house unannounced. Constantly shows up to your house unannounced. You keep telling them you don't like it and you wish they would stop. They keep doing it. They keep calling you after that hour you ask them not to do it. They keep showing up to things that you wish they wouldn't. And you've been clear about this and they keep doing it anyway. This person does not respect you, and crossing your boundaries is not good, right? And look, we all step on each other's toes sometimes. We all mess up. We can't always tiptoe around each other's every little whims, right? It's not about being a tyrant. Give a little grace, but also stand up for yourself. And if someone consistently is crossing the line, this person will not care for you, okay? A lot of times this one gets confused with really possessive and controlling types, which is, I love you and that's why I do it. I care about you and that's why I do it. Of course I respect you. I love you. That's why I do it. No, those are words. Those aren't actions, right? That's different. And also other types of controlling behaviors like isolation, refusing to allow you or punishing you in some way for spending time with friends and family. This is a negative quality, right? Obviously, there needs to be a balance in every relationship. If you're out every single day, every night with your friends and family, are you in a relationship or are you not? But if you can't prioritize both and your partner punishes you for prioritizing a friend or a family at some point, that's a problem, right? That's not okay. So there's every relationship is unique, right? And balance is necessary for all things. But if you're being treated badly, especially in the beginning of a relationship when things are supposed to be really golden, shiny, and like happy and rainbows, that is a problem. That is definitely your cue to leave. So the way you use this chart is I have a three strikes, right? And I have definitely thrown it out the window at times, for sure, as well. But if one of my boundaries is clearly expressed and calmly expressed and reiterated again when it happens, I put a little check in my book and say, you have now crossed a boundary of mine. This is not a quality I'm going to tolerate in my life. You have three strikes. After the third strike, it's a one and done. That's it. So I take my little check marks, and after the very clear, after the third strike, like, listen, you've continued to do this behavior. This behavior doesn't work for me. So either the behavior changes, and we should never ask someone else to change for us. That's also not fair. We wouldn't ask someone else to demand we change for them. You're an independent human being. It is a beautiful gift to evolve and grow in a relationship where you feel inspired, encouraged, and supported, and you're becoming your best self, right? Which is a wonderful thing that can happen in a healthy relationship. But if you're being required to change for someone in a way that you maybe don't really want to or isn't really authentic for you, that's not a good sign, right? Nor should we do that to others. But if you have a boundary that is being crossed repeatedly and it's something that keeps happening in a relationship, then it is worth saying, okay, this quality doesn't work for me. I don't want this in my life, which means this relationship isn't working for me. Either the behavior can change or the dynamic can, which means something about the relationship changes in some form or another, right? So never let the power of emotions overrun your capacity to stand up for yourself, right? A lot of us do this and it's so much easier said than done. A lot of times we don't understand our red flags, right? We don't know why, we just ignore them. So hopefully this can bring a little light on why that happens. Remember, your red flags, they're not about the other person. They're not about what they're doing. They're not about what's going on. They're really about you and about what you want and what you will accept in your life. So if you can't trust the intuitive system that's supposed to inform them, then use the mental system, right? We do everything in the medicine wheel: mind, body, emotion, spirit, so in each our little sections. So if the emotional system isn't working for you and it's leading you astray, probably to no fault of your own, this is often a result of childhood experiences that we then become attracted to in an effort to, some would say, the spirit's effort to heal from them by showing them to you. Some would say your mind's or your emotions attempt to project them outwards so that you can deal with it and finally resolve the issue that you couldn't resolve before. Some could say the mind's attachment to the familiarity of the experience, knowing that it knows how to save you and keep you alive and safe inside the experience, whether it's good for you or not. So there are many ways to look about why this happens, but really the best way to go about it is to continue to work on yourself and do you, and stay authentic and be yourself. And if you're noticing that either emotionally or either on your checklist, there's something going on there that really isn't in your best interest, do yourself a favor and don't continue to invest yourself further in something that isn't right for you, right? Of course, much easier said than done, especially when we've been invested, either emotionally or with time or with money. Sometimes it's very hard to say, oh, this just isn't working. I'm out. It's been so long. We've been together. Things have changed so much. Maybe they'll get better. Maybe not. Is it worth it? How long has it taken you to get to the point where you are? Are you willing to take that long again to get to maybe? Yeah. So I'm a huge fan. Whenever I work with partnerships and relationships, my job is to bring love back into the picture and to bring couples back together and to help improve communication so that a better relationship can form. My first perspective is always union. Very rarely, but on occasion, sometimes the answer really is this isn't for you, right? So it might be worth looking at yourself. If you're continually attracted to relationships that are obviously unhealthy for you, it's definitely time to work on yourself, right? For sure. um, they're called blind spots for a reason. It is definitely helpful to find some kind of therapist, practitioner, modality, self-awareness method, somatic practice, whatever you like, right, that can help you take a look at it and then work through it. Because sometimes just looking at it's enough. Sometimes it's not enough just to name it. And you really need to like work through that a little bit. So red flags are interesting because they don't always work. And that should make them less interesting, right? Less reliable. But the truth is, some part of you did see them. And we notice after the fact, man, after I dumped that guy, I realized he definitely had all those red flags I usually ignore, right? So this is when you can use a different system and start making your little checklist and decide what's going to be acceptable behavior for you or not while you're in your right mind before you get intoxicated by feelings and hormones and that override your sense of self very quickly. So hopefully this is somewhat useful for you. If you are feeling red flags, something I have noticed also, sometimes we create red flags to justify other underlying fears, right? So, recent conversation, you know who I'm talking to. I'm sure you'll see it soon. If you find that if everyone you meet has 500,000 red flags the minute you get close to them, that may be a justification for choosing to honor a fear instead. So if you notice that you have a tendency to avoid almost all forms of intimacy, emotional is what I'm talking about. Mental, emotional intimacy, where you're sharing deep parts of yourself, where you feel very close and very fulfilled by a relationship with someone, friendship, love partner, family, whatever. If you're struggling to deeply connect with people, and you find out that, oh, I just have a really good a little bird problem child, absolutely not. I love you. If you're finding that, see, I got distracted now. I see you. If you're finding that every possibility of a deeper connection results in the sudden explosion of a festival of red flags, those may be actually justifications from a deeper issue. So then it would be worth looking at what's underneath. And when you can pull the rug out from underneath of whatever that deeper layer is, then you can start sowing seeds in clearer soil, right? And healthier soil. And that will help you develop that better intuition. But until such time as that happens, that fear may be preventing you from even experimenting with intimacy and closeness with another. So I love you, sweetheart. So it's worth it to use the mental construct, right? If you can't trust the emotions, just get really clear and make yourself some promises, right? To take care of yourself. So get really clear mentally about what it is that you do and do not want. And then simply pursue your own roadmap, right? And know that if you wrote that in sound mind, then that's for you to follow and just make that promise to yourself to honor that roadmap in the same way that you would honor your intuition if you knew you could trust it, right? Eventually, what will happen when you continue to take action, right? Choose to explore intimate situations where you're deeply connecting with new people or even old friends, right? That you really want to enrich that relationship. Um, and know that if you can trust your little system, your map, that eventually what will happen and you take action on that, like when you see those little check boxes fill in, it's time to go, right? Or reduce the level of intimacy of a relationship. And there's lots of ways to decide what level of intimacy someone's in, what circle of closeness someone is in with you. Maybe you put that person a little further away from you, or you maybe have deep communication. There's all kinds of options available. But if someone's continually crossing those lines, then you'll know what to do because you'll have written yourself a promise to do so. And eventually you'll start taking those actions more regularly because you'll trust your sound mind instead of your confusing emotions. Eventually, your emotional self will recognize, and your subconscious self, which is where those intuitive impulses come from, will recognize what it is you're about now. And it will eventually inform that intuition system. So as you become more familiar, make the unfamiliar familiar just as much as you would like to make the familiar unfamiliar when it comes to bad patterns and unhealthy patterns. If you make familiar or unfamiliar healthy patterns into very familiar patterns, that's the only reason it's hard. It's just unfamiliar. But if you make them familiar by continuing to take the action towards them, then your intuition will begin to be informed by this system and plan you've designed for yourself. And then eventually you'll realize, my mental thoughts and my emotional warning system are working together and in unison. Maybe I can trust my intuition now. But you'll have both systems as a failsafe, a backup to make sure that you have. Hi, Chrissy. Hello. I'm surprised to see you. It's late. You too, Miss Emma. It's late, right? Then you'll be able to trust that intuitive system. And even if you're not sure, sometimes the heart's in one direction, the head's in another, right? You choose which one's your failsafe. Say, well, I tend to let my heart carry me away and not pay attention to what's good for me. Okay, well, I'm going to use this as my backup here, this mental plan that I have, this reasonable plan that I have, and then allow that to take precedence, right? Until eventually you feel like you can trust your intuition, because eventually you will. Your intuition's not broken. It's just been informed badly, usually by childhood experiences, right? Especially by an overbearing parent or neglectful parent. It's important to deal with that, but until such time as we do heal from it, we'll continue to see it everywhere if we do. Hello. Then we will need these other more thoughtful, mindful, conscious decision making and plans in order to keep us from making emotional decisions that we know that don't really serve us and aren't really working for us, right? That said, remember, don't be a tyrant. Not everyone's perfect. And give a little grace, kindness, and compassion. We all have a story. We're all also in our own little world. In reality, deep communication is so essential. Very clear communication is so essential. I see this a lot, especially in the love and romance category, even with friendships. What is the status of your friendship? Do you really know? What's your zone of intimacy? What's your circle of closeness? Where is this person lie? Do they know? Are you monogamous or not? Does the other person know that that's what you want? It's a lot of times we have these expectations that another is on the same wavelength we are in everything, but that's totally not true. You must assume that miscommunication is the norm, not the exception. So in order to avoid that, just really clear, bold, fearless communication will resolve a lot of these problems. And maybe if they don't resolve the problems, they'll bring clarity to them so that way you can, Helen, hello. So that way you can make better choices, right? And like I said, eventually your decisions will and your actions will inform that intuitive part of yourself differently. It's a two-pronged approach, right? First deal with problem underlying, and then just start taking new actions and make that your new norm. And eventually that will inform your intuition. Your intuition will run in a way that you would much prefer, right? But until such time as that happens, it's not about giving up, right? It's just about working on it. And what that means is it doesn't mean you have to constantly be working on improving your intuition if your intuition's informed by something that's damaged, right? So you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. But we can fix the damage that was done by earlier life experiences that is now causing these poor choices. So you can naturally be attracted to the love you want. You can naturally stop creating problems where there aren't ones, right? And you can heal and grow towards love and intimacy because closeness is in our biology. It's for us. We are social beings. And as much as a lot of us like to say, oh, I'm better off alone, I'm happier alone, maybe not, right? Maybe this is a story that we tell to protect ourselves. Maybe this is fear speaking, right? And maybe it's true. Maybe you really are a lone wolf, and that's okay too, right? There's nothing that says you have to be a social being. The likelihood is, even the most unsociable of us do deeply desire communion and companionship and community. And it's a really wonderful part of life when we can really learn how to do it right. And having that natural and automatic ability to rely on who is good for you and who is not good for you is an important skill. And it is not a gift, it's a skill. You definitely can learn it. So you have a little bit of a trick here to help you learn it. If you're interested in more material like this, I love doing one-on-one stuff because this is really personal. It's really personal. Like why this is maybe going on, why your picker might be broken, why you seem to be naturally attracted to the wrong people, why you seem to always have the wrong types of friends, why you may prefer to get involved with unhealthy relationships for some reason, it may just not be your fault, right? But once you notice it, it is your problem, which means it's definitely worth dealing with. Definitely worth dealing, yeah, worth dealing with. That sounds silly for some reason. So I do love this type of work. There are lots of different types of therapists that do this type of thing. I'm really more of a coach than a therapist, which means my job is not to listen to you talk about your problems, though we'll do that too. It's to help guide you in making new choices that can help you make changes in yourself and in your life forever. To help you empower yourself to live the best life that you really want to live automatically, easily, effortlessly, because it should be that way, right? When you are the person that you want to be, then your life unfolds in the way you wish it would, right? That's the way it works. Of course, shit happens. Not that life will always be perfect, but you'll know what to do, you'll know how to handle it, and you'll have the emotional resilience and resources to help yourself live your best life and deal with whatever comes up in a way that is graceful and joyful, right? Eventually, right? Or at least becomes a good lesson. I hope this was helpful and useful. Updates? I always get asked for updates. I always forget to do that. What's updates? Let's see. I have some spaces available for my 10-week coaching program. The one half of the program, it's all about the medicine wheel. We travel around the medicine wheel to break apart your life into many segments and your personality and use the medicine wheel's map. If you're familiar with shamanic concepts, you'll love it. If you're not familiar with shamanic concepts, you'll still love it. You don't have to be, right? It's all stuff you're going to learn in the program. One side of the program, the White Road of Healing, is all about really getting in there to evolve your identity and your connection with yourself and your capacity to live the life you really want to live and to create a reality you love. The Red Road of Expansion is for people who are already on their path. If they're doing a lot of healing work, maybe you're in progress, you're really just ready for that next level. You want to dive deeper and expand in your spiritual practice, expand in your communication skills, expand in leadership. That's a really great choice. So I do have some openings for that, which is awesome. And let's see what else is going on. Yes, we are still in Patagonia, Chile, which is nice and cold. It's snowing in the next town, but not here yet. So we shall see when that happens. Maybe I'll post some pictures, right? If you have any questions, please comment them and I will respond to them. I love to respond to questions. You can also feel free to hop into the Facebook group and the WhatsApp chat, where, of course, we like community, right? I love community, where you can find people who, a lot of people use this expression like-minded, but I don't really care for that, because if everyone was the same, that'd be boring, right? We wouldn't learn anything. So I would say it's a very diverse group of people from totally different walks of life, all focused on a singular mission of growing and learning and living their best life ever. And they are on the way and doing it and in it. And it's just an awesome space. So if you like that kind of vibe and you want to get around that, remember, you are the sum total of the five people you spend the most time with. So I like to hop into a community that is empowering and learning and growing and integrating, getting all the deep, juicy stuff in there in a space that's private and maybe outside of the rest of your life, which is great. So I'll put those links in the description. And if you like this type of material, subscribe, all the social media stuff. You're here. You might as well do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Click some likes and subscribes. Hop into the group maybe if you like. And if you want to vote on the next topic, leave me a comment and I would love to see it and make your next Tuesday live all about what it is that excites you. So here we do medicine topics, personal growth, life, development, identity, and beliefs. Very good stuff. And of course, ceremonial medicine. Please let me know what you like, and I will be happy to circle back around and see if that can be the next topic. This topic was a last-minute decision. Thank you, Chrissy, because she hopped into the Facebook Messenger group and said, let's try this, and I love it. So here we are. Thank you. It's always off the cuff, right? I think that's it. I hope you enjoy a beautiful night. Yes, this live will stay up, so for those who are checking in on Tuesday, I love you as well. And please feel free to leave your questions below and we can circle back around to them, of course. Hope you have a beautiful night, day, morning, wherever you are. Take care.